My name is Karina, and the first time my mother told me I was nothing, I believed her. It was a rainy afternoon. The kind where the sky feels heavy enough to crush your chest. I was 15, standing in the kitchen with a report card in my trembling hands. Straight A's. Honors in mathematics. A scholarship recommendation from my teacher. My mother didn't even look up from her wine glass. Grades don't change blood, she said. You come from nothing. You will always be nothing. Learn your place, Karina. Dreaming only makes the fall harder. Her words carved themselves into me like stone. For years, I carried them as if they were truth. Each time I tried to stand taller, I heard her voice pushing me back down. Each time I reached for hope, I remembered her smirk. But here is the thing about words. They can bury you, yes, but they can also ignite you. On the night of my 30th birthday, my face was on every television in the city. Stock tickers rolled beneath my name. Headlines read, Karina Marlowe appointed CEO of Novarex Technologies, valuation $60 million. I had gone from nothing to everything she swore I could never touch. And I made sure she saw it. Because my mother's betrayal was not only her cruelty, it was her pattern. Years of dismissals. Years of mockery. Years of making me the family's shadow while my brother, her golden child, basked in attention. I carried groceries, worked shifts, studied in silence, and all she ever said was, "Don't embarrass us by thinking you're special." So when the cameras turned on me, when the microphones crowded close, I smiled. Not just for the investors. Not just for the board. I smiled for her. The woman who swore I would never climb. But the path from that kitchen insult to the CEO's chair was not simple. It was paved with evidence, with allies, with patience and fury in equal measure. And it was paved with betrayal deeper than any words she spoke, because what I uncovered years later proved my mother's cruelty had teeth. I remember the exact moment it shifted. It was Thanksgiving. My family gathered in the same cramped dining room I had grown up in. The smell of turkey and cinnamon filled the air. My brother, Lucas, clinked a glass to announce his new promotion at the bank. My mother beamed at him as if he had hung the moon. Then she looked at me. "And you, Karina? Still working that little assistant job? You should be grateful Lucas sets the bar. Otherwise, you'd have nothing to measure yourself against." Laughter rippled around the table. My cousins smirked. My aunt shook her head in pity. I wanted to disappear into the floorboards. That night, as I lay awake, I realized something. Pity was the worst betrayal of all. My mother had convinced everyone to see me as less. And I had let her. Not anymore. The next morning, I opened my laptop and began documenting. Every cruel word. Every dismissal. Every moment she chose Lucas over me. Not because I wanted revenge then, but because I knew one day I would need proof of who she truly was. What I didn't know was that proof would grow into something far more powerful than a journal. It would become a weapon. Because by the time I reached the edge of my success, I would uncover a secret buried in my family's finances. A secret my mother never thought I was clever enough to find. And that secret would be the match that set her entire kingdom of lies aflame. That is how my story begins. Not with celebration, but with humiliation. Not with wealth, but with a girl in a kitchen, holding a report card like a shield and hearing her mother say, "You will never be anything." Because years later, as my name flashed across the news and my company's stock soared, my phone rang. It was her voice on the line, shaking. "Karina, we need help. The house is at risk." The call came on the same night my face filled the news. The city was alive with my name. The stock ticker flashed. Investors celebrated. Reporters wanted quotes. And then her voice. My mother's voice. "Karina, we need help. The house is at risk." For a moment I couldn't breathe. After all the years she told me I was nothing, now she was calling me when she had nowhere else to go. I should have hung up. I should have let her beg into silence. But old habits die hard. I stayed on the line. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice cold. She hesitated, then sighed. "It's the mortgage. We've fallen behind. The bank has sent notices. If we don't pay soon, we could lose everything." I closed my eyes. Images of that small kitchen filled my head. My report card. Her smirk. The laughter at Thanksgiving. And now she dared to speak of we. "How long?" I asked. "Months," she admitted. "Your brother tried to help, but he's under strain." We need you. Please. Lucas. Of course. Her golden boy. The one who could do no wrong. The one she always compared me to. He had tried to help? Or had he drained what was left and left her to cover the trail? My mother's voice softened. Karina, you have done so well for yourself. More than we imagined. You can save us. Just one check, one payment. It will all go away. One payment. As if success were a faucet I could turn on and off. As if my life's work, the years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights building Novarex brick by brick, meant I could casually erase their mistakes. I said nothing. I let silence stretch until it hurt. Finally I asked, why now? She faltered. Because the bank is serious. They've scheduled a visit. They said the word foreclosure. Karina, I am scared. I heard fear in her voice. Real fear. But beneath it was something sharper. Calculation. She had never admitted weakness without purpose. I hung up before answering. That night, I did what I had learned to do best. I dug for the truth. I called an old contact at the bank, a man I had known when I worked at the bottom rung. He owed me a favor. Within an hour, a file arrived in my inbox. The numbers glared up at me. Months of missed payments. Fees stacked high. But there was more. Hidden inside the file was a loan recent, reckless. Taken out not for the house, but for investment opportunities. And whose name was on the application? Lucas. My brother. My stomach dropped. The golden boy. The pride of the family. He had not tried to save them. He had gambled their security on dreams. And my mother had co-signed it. She knew. She always knew. And now she wanted me to erase the evidence with money. I scrolled further. The worst came at the end. The file showed not only the missed payments but also an authorized contact change. My mother had tried to switch my name onto the account as responsible party. Without asking. Without telling me. She had already decided. If I refused to pay willingly, she would tether me to the debt by fraud. I sat frozen at my desk, the glow of the screen burning into my eyes. My own mother. The woman who told me I was worthless. The woman who mocked me for years. She had used my name behind my back. And now she was calling it help. I printed the documents, slid them into a folder, and placed them on the table beside me. Each page was not just evidence. It was betrayal in ink. My phone buzzed again. A message from her. Short. Cold. Come tomorrow. We will explain. Bring your checkbook. Not please. Not forgive us. Only expectation. I stared at the words until they blurred. Because as I prepared to confront her, a second email arrived from the bank, showing that the loan tied to Lucas was collapsing fast. And if it did, the entire house would fall with it. The folder from the bank sat on my desk like a loaded weapon. Numbers, dates, signatures. All proof that my mother and Lucas had spun a web of lies, and now wanted me to cover it with my success. I couldn't sleep. At dawn I began building my own file. Years of humiliation had trained me for this moment. I opened an old box from under my bed. Inside were scraps I had saved without knowing why. Notes from my mother's hand. Karina, you will never keep up with Lucas. Report cards I had hidden after she mocked them. Pay stubs from my first jobs where I covered groceries when she claimed she had no money. Receipts for birthday dinners I paid for myself because she forgot. One by one I scanned everything into my computer. I created folders. Financial neglect, emotional abuse, Lucas's failures, mother's words. Each file was a brick. Together they were a wall of truth. By mid-morning I called Evelyn Ross, an attorney I had once met at a leadership seminar. She was sharp, blunt, and relentless. When she picked up I wasted no time. I think my mother forged my authorization on a loan, I said. There was a pause, then her steady reply. Bring me the documents. 2 hours later, I sat across from her at a small desk. Sunlight cut across neat stacks of case files. I handed her the folder from the bank. She read silently, lips pressed tight. When she finished, she looked at me with a gaze that missed nothing. This is not just mismanagement. This is fraud. And if your name was attached without consent, it's identity misuse. The bank will side with you if you push. Do you want to? Her words echoed. Do I want to? I thought of that kitchen, my mother's smirk, Lucas raising his glass while everyone laughed at me. Yes, I wanted to. I do, I said. Evelyn nodded. Then gather everything. Emails, texts, witnesses. Build your record. The stronger the file, the weaker they are when exposed. That evening I dug deeper. I searched through old messages from Lucas. The pattern was there. His boasts about investments, his vague excuses about needing just a little more cash. His silence when I asked how he was paying the loans. I took screenshots. Time-stamped. Cataloged. I opened my mother's emails. She had once sent me scanned utility bills by mistake. Except the mistake had revealed her debts, not mine. I had paid them without question years ago. Now I marked them. More proof. I even reached out to Miriam, our old neighbor. She remembered nights when Lucas stumbled home bragging about risky trades. She remembered my mother's desperate phone calls begging for extensions. Miriam agreed to write a statement. Every piece fell into place. The picture that emerged was not just neglect. It was a strategy. For years they had used me quietly. When I was small it was my time, my silence, my patience. As an adult it was my money, my credit, my reputation. And now, when I had built something they could not deny, they had decided to forge my name as if my success belonged to them. But Evelyn's words haunted me. The stronger the file, the weaker they are when exposed. I wanted more than survival. I wanted them to face the humiliation I had carried for years. At midnight, I typed a final note into my journal. They wanted me invisible. Now I will make them undeniable. The next morning, I received another message. This one not from my mother, but from Lucas. It was short, arrogant. Be smart, Karina. Sign the check. The board may trust you now, but family always wins. I stared at the words, fury burning hot and cold. He was wrong. Because this time I had the proof. And I would not play the invisible girl anymore. Because that same afternoon, a package arrived at my office. Inside was a copy of the loan contract, with my signature scrawled across the bottom in ink I had never touched. The forged contract shook me more than I expected. My name, my handwriting, but not my hand. It was a perfect imitation, almost flawless. Almost. The loops of the K were wrong. The pressure uneven. Whoever had done it didn't know the way my pen dug into paper when I was angry, or the way my letters leaned left when I was tired. Still, it was enough to fool a stranger. Enough to trap me if I didn't fight. I carried the document back to Evelyn's office. She laid it flat under a bright lamp, tracing the strokes with her pen. This, she said, is forgery. And given the stakes, it borders on criminal fraud. But if you want the law on your side, you need more than suspicion. You need experts, allies, and context. Her words steadied me. I wasn't alone anymore. Julia, my oldest friend since college, came over that evening. She had always been the one person who believed in me when my family didn't. She listened as I laid out the evidence. The loan files, the bank notices, the forged signature. Her eyes widened. Karina, this isn't just family drama. This is them trying to own your life. You cannot let them. I won't, I said. But I need people beside me. I can't be the invisible girl anymore. Julia nodded firmly. Then I'm in. Whatever you need, witness, records, even just someone to stand next to you when they try to tear you down. I'll be there. The next day, Evelyn introduced me to a handwriting analyst she trusted. A woman named Claire, sharp-eyed and meticulous. She studied the forged signature for less than a minute before shaking her head. Not hers. The slant is inconsistent. The pressure drops mid-stroke. Classic copy. A jury would see it. Hearing those words filled me with a strange power. For years, my mother's voice had been my jury. Now I had experts who would judge differently. But Evelyn wasn't finished. We need more than handwriting. We need to show pattern. A history of using you financially, emotionally, strategically. You've started the file. Now we expand it. Emails, texts, neighbors, colleagues, anyone who can testify that you carried what they abandoned. Julia leaned forward. And we control the narrative. If they try to paint you as selfish, we prove generosity. If they claim accident, we show intent. For the first time, I felt not like a daughter defending herself, but like a strategist. A woman with an army at her back. We set up a plan. I would keep documenting. Julia would gather outside witnesses, friends, old neighbors, even professors who remembered my mother's dismissals. Evelyn would prepare the legal framework, filing drafts, injunctions ready in case the family pushed further. Claire would prepare her expert report, and together we would wait for the right moment to strike. Because Evelyn was clear. You don't just want quiet victory. You want exposure. You want them stripped of the mask they've worn for years. That takes timing. That takes spectacle. I remembered Thanksgiving. My brother's smug toast. My mother's smirk. Their laughter at my expense. And I knew exactly where to hit them at their own stage. Every year my family hosted a lavish holiday gala. Neighbors, colleagues, distant relatives all gathered in their house to eat, drink, and admire Lucas's latest promotion. My mother made speeches. Lucas shined. And I stood in the corner invisible. Not this year. This time, I said. I'll let them invite the crowd. I'll let them gather their audience. And when they try to humiliate me again, I'll have the truth ready. They'll laugh one last time and then choke on it. Julia's hand gripped mine. That's the Karina I know. Evelyn smiled thinly. Then we prepare for the gala. Build the record. Sharpen the story. And when the night comes, you will not just defend yourself. You will own the room. For years I had been the quiet shadow. Now I felt the light turn toward me. Because the very next morning, an embossed invitation arrived in my mailbox, my mother's handwriting in elegant script. Holiday Gala, Saturday at 7. Attendance expected. The invitation lay on my kitchen table, glossy and ornate, as though nothing had happened. Holiday Gala, Saturday at 7. Attendance expected. Those two words, attendance expected, were not request, not invitation but command. My mother had always spoken that way, as if my role in life was to obey. I stared at the card until Julia said what I was already thinking. This is it. This is where we strike. Evelyn leaned over the table, her hands folded. Then we plan it like a case. Every detail. Every piece of evidence placed where it cannot be ignored. The counterplan began. Step 1, the record. We gathered everything into 3 identical binders. One for me, one for Evelyn, one is backup locked in Julia's car. Inside. Bank statements, the fraudulent loan file, the forged signature analyzed by Claire, witness affidavits, screenshots of messages, even old receipts proving I had carried them for years. Every page numbered. Every claim sourced. Step 2, the narrative. Evelyn coached me. You do not shout. You do not cry. You hold the binder like armor and speak as if you are already believed. Calm destroys liars faster than rage. She drilled me through scenarios, my mother weeping, Lucas mocking, relatives heckling. Each time I practiced the same response. Facts steady, undeniable. Step 3, the allies. Julia secured Miriam, our old neighbor, to attend. Harold, the retired teacher who remembered Lucas bragging about borrowing money. Claire, the handwriting analyst, agreed to stand quietly in the back until called. Evelyn herself would attend, not as lawyer but as friend. Allies hidden in plain sight, ready to confirm every word. Step 4, the timing. We knew the script of those galas. Lucas would give his annual toast. My mother would beam, list his accomplishments, then toss a barbed joke in my direction to remind everyone of my place. That would be the moment. Instead of swallowing humiliation, I would open the binder and begin. Julia grinned. They'll set the stage for their own destruction. Step 5, the reveal. Not all at once. Piece by piece. First, the proof of payments I had made. Then the bank notices. Then the forged loan. Finally, the signature Claire would declare false. By the time I finished, there would be no laughter left, only silence heavy enough to break glass. We rehearsed for hours. Evelyn playing my mother, dripping sarcasm. Julia pretending to be Lucas, smirking and cruel. Each time I faced them with steady voice, binder in hand, evidence laid out one sheet at a time. The girl who once hid her report cards was gone. In her place stood a woman who would not be erased. But Evelyn warned me. Desperate people lash out. Expect a twist. Expect them to turn the crowd against you. Prepare your calm for the worst storm. I nodded, but deep inside I felt the tremor of fear. What if I failed? What if they twisted my success into arrogance, my proof into betrayal? For 30 years they had convinced everyone I was nothing. Could one night erase all those years? The night before the gala, I placed the binder on my desk. I lit a candle and sat in silence. I thought of that girl in the kitchen with her report card. I thought of every Thanksgiving toast, every birthday ignored, every word my mother used like a blade. And I whispered to myself, tomorrow I take it back. Sleep did not come. Instead, I dreamed awake of lights, faces, laughter turning to gasps. I rehearsed my words over and over. I am not nothing. I am the one who kept you standing. At dawn, Julia arrived with coffee. Evelyn followed with her calm precision. We reviewed the binders one last time. Claire sent her final report, signed and notarized, declaring the signature forged. Allies were in place. Evidence airtight. By evening, I dressed not in glittering gowns like the guests would, but in a simple black dress, sharp lines, nothing to distract from the binder in my hand. Julia pinned back my hair. Evelyn pressed the recorder into my pocket. We drove to the house. Lights blazed through the windows. Laughter spilled onto the street. Cars crowded the driveway, the same neighbors and relatives who had smirked at me years before. The stage was waiting. Because as I stepped out of the car, I saw Lucas standing at the door, wine glass in hand, smirk on his lips. And he whispered as I passed, "Smile, Karina. Tonight, you'll remember why you'll never beat us." The moment I stepped inside the house, the past came rushing back. The chandeliers glittered. The smell of roasted meats and spice wine filled the air. Laughter rang off the walls. It was the same gala I had endured year after year. Except this time I wasn't here to survive it. I was here to end it. But from the start something felt wrong. The conversations hushed as people noticed me. Faces turned. Smiles were forced. My mother stood by the piano, her gown shimmering gold, but her eyes were sharp. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked prepared. Lucas approached with his glass, smirk still glued to his lips. "Well, look who finally decided to be family." He leaned closer. "Careful with that little folder you're holding. Mother already knows what's inside." My pulse quickened. Evelyn had warned me. Expect a twist. I gripped the binder tighter. The evening unfolded like a play. Music swelled. Guests mingled. Lucas boasted about his investments. My mother floated from group to group, whispering in ears, glancing toward me with a smile too wide. They were setting the stage, but for what? At 7:30, Lucas clinked his glass. The room gathered. It was the same ritual every year. My mother at the center. Lucas the star. And me, once invisible, now standing at the edge. "Another successful year," Lucas announced. "Thanks to Mother's guidance, our family continues to thrive." Applause. My mother raised her chin as if crowned. Then the twist. Lucas gestured toward the table beside him. On it sat a folder identical to mine. He opened it theatrically, pulling out papers. "But some among us," he said loudly, "have been less honest." My heart slammed against my ribs. He held up a page. From across the room I recognized it instantly. The loan contract. My signature scrawled across the bottom, the forgery. "This," Lucas said, his voice dripping with false pity, "shows that my dear sister Karina has been meddling with accounts, tying her name to loans, and then blaming us for her mistakes." Gasps rippled through the room. He spread the papers across the table like a magician revealing a trick. My mother stepped forward, hand on her heart. We tried to protect her. We begged her to stop. But she has always wanted to prove she was better than us. And now this. Whispers filled the air. Neighbors shook their heads. Cousins stared at me with wide eyes. The same humiliation I had endured my whole life flooded back, but sharper, weaponized. They weren't just trying to silence me. They were trying to flip the story, make me the villain. I opened my mouth, but Lucas cut me off. "Tell them, Karina. Admit it. You forged your own name, gambled your own company's reputation, and now you're here to cover it with lies." The room turned toward me, waiting. For years I had dreamed of this moment, the chance to speak. But not like this. Not with their voices already poisoning the air. I glanced at Evelyn in the back. She gave me a single nod. Steady. Calm. The binder in my hands felt heavier than ever. I stepped forward, ready to open it, ready to reveal the truth page by page. But then my mother raised her hand, silencing the room. She looked directly at me, her smile cruel. You want to play CEO, Karina? Fine. Tonight, we'll let the crowd decide who you really are. She snapped her fingers. Two men stepped in from the side hallway, each carrying stacks of papers. They began passing them to the guests. I caught a glimpse as one passed near me, printouts of emails. My emails. But not the real ones. Fabricated messages, lines twisted out of context, made to look like I had admitted everything. The trap was deeper than I imagined. Gasps grew louder as guests skimmed the pages. Someone whispered, "She confessed." Another muttered, "How could she do this?" My throat tightened. This was their pivot. They hadn't just forged my signature. They had built an entire narrative against me. And they had unleashed it in front of everyone before I could speak. Julia grabbed my arm. "Karina, you can't let this stand." I swallowed hard, steadying my breath. Evelyn's voice echoed in my head. Calm destroys liars faster than rage. I stepped forward, binder clutched tight, ready to open it, ready to drown their lies in truth. But before I could, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "Excuse me. I need to say something." The crowd parted as Claire, the handwriting analyst, walked forward, holding her own folder. Her eyes locked on Lucas. Because just as Claire opened her folder to speak, the lights flickered, and the entire house went dark. The room plunged into darkness. Gasps, nervous laughter, the shuffle of feet. Someone dropped a glass. I heard the sharp crack of shards on marble. My mother's voice rose, calm and rehearsed. "Stay seated, everyone. It's only the storm. We'll have lights in a moment." But it wasn't the storm. I knew the weather, clear skies outside. This was planned. Another diversion. Another trick. I pressed my binder against my chest, heart pounding. If I faltered now, their lies would take root. I couldn't let that happen. Julia's whisper brushed my ear. "We have your phone. Use the flashlight." I switched it on. The narrow beam cut through the dark, catching pale faces and wide eyes. Claire stood just feet away, her own folder in hand. She raised it high. "I don't need lights to tell you this. The signature on that loan is a forgery." Murmurs spread like fire. My mother's voice snapped back, sharper now. "She's lying. Paid by Karina to cover her mistakes." But Claire's tone was steady, cold. "I am certified. Court appointed in dozens of cases. And I will testify under oath. That signature is not Karina's." The power surged back. Chandeliers flickered alive. All eyes shifted to me. My hands trembled, but I stepped forward, binder under my arm. "They wanted you to see me as a liar, to believe I forged my own name. But here is the truth." I opened the binder. Page 1. Proof of mortgage payments I had made for years. I held it up for the crowd. "This is my money. My name. Not theirs." Page 2. Screenshots of messages from Lucas begging for extra cash, while boasting about investments. "This is their dependence. Not mine." Page 3. Bank notices flagging fraudulent authorizations in my name. "This is their crime. Not my mistake." One by one, I laid the sheets across the table, each page a weapon, each word heavier than my mother's entire speech. My mother tried to laugh, but it cracked in her throat. "You misunderstand. We only—" I cut her off, my voice sharp. "You only mocked me. You only erased me. You only forged my name to save yourselves. And now you want me to pay again. But I will not." The crowd grew restless. Neighbors leaned closer. Relatives whispered to one another. Someone muttered, "She has proof." Lucas sneered. "So what? Even if you're right, no one cares. You'll always be the girl in the corner." I looked at him steadily. "No. I'm the woman whose face was on every screen last night. CEO of a $60 million company. You tried to bury me, and instead I climbed higher than you could ever dream." The words landed like a stone dropped in water. Ripples of silence spread. For once, Lucas had nothing to say. I turned the final page. Claire stepped beside me and held it up. The analysis report. Her official seal stamped at the bottom. Forgery. Deliberate. Calculated. Evelyn rose from the back, her voice ringing through the room. "You've all seen it tonight. Not accusations. Not emotion. Evidence. Fraud, neglect, manipulation. Karina carried this family while they mocked her. And when she succeeded, they tried to steal it. That is the truth. The room erupted. Some guests gasped. Others stood, whispering fiercely. Pastor Lewis shook his head, muttering a prayer. My cousins avoided my eyes. Neighbors whispered my name with something I had never heard before. Respect. My mother's face went white. Lucas's smirk shattered. For the first time, the power in the room belonged to me. I closed the binder gently, the sound sharp in the silence. You told me I was nothing. Tonight you see who I am. The quiet that followed was heavier than applause. And then rage. My father, who had been silent all night, finally stood. His voice boomed across the room. Enough! You shame this family in front of everyone. If you walk out that door, Karina, you are no daughter of mine. I met his eyes calm. I walked out of this family the moment you let her tell me I was worthless. Because as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a new message, from an unknown number. It read, "Step carefully. We're not finished. You don't know what Lucas signed in your name last month." The message on my phone burned into my eyes. Step carefully. We're not finished. You don't know what Lucas signed in your name last month. For a moment the entire room blurred. The chandelier lights shimmered, the murmur swelled. But all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. Another signature? Another fraud? My grip on the binder tightened. Evelyn's eyes met mine across the room. She saw my face pale, and I saw the question in hers. What now? Before I could answer, the crowd erupted. Guests whispered loudly, some disgusted, others in shock. Neighbors who had once smirked at me now stared at my mother and Lucas as though they were strangers. One woman, Mrs. Hill from across the street, stood up. I always wondered how you managed those renovations, Margaret. You told us Lucas's promotion covered it. But it was Karina, wasn't it? You used her. My mother's face froze, the mask slipping. That is not true, she began, but her voice wavered. Another voice cut in, Miriam, the neighbor I had asked to come. She stepped forward, her arms crossed. I saw it. Karina brought groceries when you said you couldn't afford them. She covered bills. And you laughed behind her back. Enough lies. The room rippled with agreement. The tide was turning fast, heavier than even I expected. Lucas slammed his glass down, wine spilling across the floor. You're all fools. She's manipulating you. She's always been jealous of me. Of us. He pointed at me, finger trembling. She forged those documents herself. She planned this whole charade. Claire raised her folder calmly. Impossible. I examined the ink, the strokes. It was copied from one of her old contracts. The evidence is conclusive. Evelyn added, her voice ringing clear. And we have copies of the bank reports. Certified. Time-stamped. Not from Karina, direct from the lender. What you did tonight is fraud in public view. Gasps echoed again. A cousin muttered. Fraud in front of everyone? The weight of the word hung in the air like thunder. My mother's hand shook. She grabbed Lucas's arm. Enough. Stop talking. But it was too late. The guests began to leave. Some walked out silently, others shaking their heads in disgust. Pastor Lewis lingered near the door, his voice low but firm. Margaret, I warned you pride would ruin you. Tonight it has. The humiliation was visible now. My mother slumped into a chair, pale as paper. Lucas's fury burned, but behind it I saw fear. Julia leaned close to me, whispering, Karina, you did it. They're finished. But the message on my phone still burned. Another signature. Another betrayal waiting in the dark. As I turned to leave, Lucas lunged forward. This isn't over. You think being CEO makes you invincible? You think the world won't turn on you too? Just wait. His voice cracked, desperation leaking through the rage. I held his gaze. The difference between us, Lucas? I built something real. You only build lies. Security moved in, neighbors, cousins, even Evelyn herself stepping between us. Julia pulled me toward the door. The night air hit me like a flood, cool and sharp. But the relief didn't last. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then at me. Her expression tightened. Karina, we need to talk. She showed me the email. From the bank again. This time a new file attached. A line of credit. Opened last month. Under your name. Authorized with your signature. Amount, $200,000. The ground tilted beneath me. They hadn't just tried to steal the house. They had tried to chain me with debt I never touched. Julia grabbed my arm. Karina, this is worse than we thought. I exhaled slowly, forcing calm. Then we prove it the same way we proved everything else. Page by page. Step by step. But inside my chest burned. This wasn't just about humiliation anymore. This was war. Because as we stood on the driveway, headlights flared across the street. A dark sedan idled, its engine low, its windows tinted. Watching. Waiting. The morning after the gala felt like a different world. Sunlight streamed through my apartment windows, but it did nothing to warm me. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages, missed calls, voicemails. The fallout had begun. I sat at the kitchen table with the binder open. Pages scattered across the surface like the wreckage of a storm. Julia poured coffee, her eyes bloodshot from too little sleep. Evelyn arrived not long after, already in a crisp suit, folders tucked under her arm. They're spiraling, she said without preamble. The neighbors are talking. Your family's reputation took a public hit last night. But that's not the end. The bank called me this morning. They confirmed the $200,000 line of credit was fraud. They're opening an internal investigation. The words landed like a hammer. Fraud. Not whispers anymore. Official. I rubbed my temples. So it's real. They actually tried to saddle me with debt. Evelyn nodded grimly. Yes. And the paper trail is undeniable. They used documents from your early employment, copied your old signature. We have experts ready to testify. But there's more. She slid another folder toward me. Inside were emails time-stamped from Lucas's account. Somehow the bank had traced them. Requests for cash transfers, promises of repayment, boasting about how Karina will never notice until it's too late. My stomach twisted. Seeing it in writing made the betrayal heavier than words alone. Julia slammed her fist lightly against the table. They can't hide now. Everyone will know. But Evelyn's expression darkened. Be careful. Exposure is powerful, but desperation breeds danger. If they feel cornered, they may lash out harder. We must be precise. By mid-morning, the calls turned to knocks. Reporters outside the building. Neighbors texting me screenshots of gossip posts. Did you hear? The Marlowes forged their daughter's name. The story was spreading fast. At noon, my brother called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was venom wrapped in pleading. Karina, stop this before you regret it. You think the board at Novarex won't question a scandal tied to your name? You'll lose everything too. Drop it. Pay the bills. Keep quiet. I saved the message. Another piece of evidence. Then came my mother's call. Her voice cracked through the phone. Karina, please. I know we made mistakes. But the family name, our legacy, everything will crumble. Think of your grandparents. Think of us. If you love me at all, end this now. I closed my eyes, listening to the voice that had once dictated my worth. I remembered her words from years ago. You will never be anything. And now here she was, begging the nothing girl to save her. I did not answer. I let the silence speak for me. That afternoon, Evelyn laid out the next steps. We can file charges. Identity fraud, financial abuse, attempted extortion. The bank will support. The witnesses will stand. If we go forward, this doesn't just humiliate them. It dismantles them. Julia touched my hand. Karina, this is your choice. Do you want to destroy them in court? Or is last night enough? I stared at the binder, the messages, the forged documents. Last night had exposed them, yes. But the email, the loan, the threats, they weren't stopping. They would keep clawing until nothing was left of me. I shook my head. We finish it. No more shadows. No more survival. This time they face consequences. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Then tomorrow I file. Night fell heavy. I sat by the window, city lights glowing in the distance. My phone buzzed again, one last voicemail before midnight. My father's voice, low and steady. Karina, you've made enemies you don't understand. If you bring us down, you'll go with us. Think carefully. I pressed delete without hesitation. But when I turned back to the window, my heart skipped. Across the street, under a lamppost, The same dark sedan from the gala sat idling, engine purring. Watching. Because as I reached for my phone to call Evelyn, the car door opened, and Lucas stepped out, his eyes locked on my building, as if this war had just shifted from legal papers to something far more dangerous. Lucas stood under the lamppost that night, his figure sharp in the glow. For a moment we just stared at each other across the distance. No words. No shouts. Just the weight of everything between us. Then Julia touched my arm. "Karina, leave the blinds. Don't give him the satisfaction." I listened. I stepped back, closed the curtains, and let the night swallow him. I realized then that the greatest weapon my family had ever used wasn't the debt, or the forged signatures or the lies. It was fear. The fear they planted in me as a girl with a report card in her hands, trembling under my mother's smirk. But fear only controls you if you let it. The next morning, Evelyn filed the complaint. Identity fraud. Forgery. Attempted extortion. With the bank's cooperation and the witnesses' statements, the case was airtight. My family would no longer stand on whispers and manipulation. They would stand in front of the law. The fallout was swift. Neighbors stopped defending them. Colleagues distanced themselves. Invitations to their grand galas dried up. Lucas's bank suspended him, citing pending investigation. My mother's once proud voice grew quiet. For me, life shifted too. There were headlines, of course. CEO Karina Marlowe exposes family fraud. Some painted me as cold, others as courageous, but I no longer cared. I had built Novarex from nothing, and I stood tall because of it. The storm did not take me, it revealed me. Weeks later, as I walked into the office, one of my board members pulled me aside. "Your mother once said you'd never be anything," he said softly. "Now the whole world sees you as everything she couldn't be." The words lingered with me. Not because they flattered me, but because they showed the truth. Success is not measured by the people who try to bury you. It is measured by the strength to rise anyway. I never went back to that house. The mortgage, the loans, the fake signatures, all became part of court records, not my responsibility. I closed that chapter like a door behind me. And yet, in quiet moments, I thought of the girl I once was, the one who sat in the kitchen, clutching a report card, hearing her mother say, "You will never be anything." If I could speak to her now, I would say, "You will be more than they ever imagined, and one day they will have to watch." Because revenge isn't always fire or fury. Sometimes revenge is success so undeniable, it becomes the mirror your enemies cannot escape. I am Karina. My mother said I would never be anything. Then she saw my face on the news as CEO of a $60 million company. And when she tried to steal it, when she tried to chain me to her lies, I exposed her. I ended the silence. I chose myself. And if you are listening, if you have been told you are nothing, hear me clearly. You are not invisible. You do not have to carry their weight. You can set it down. You can build something that is yours no matter how small it begins. One day, the people who dismissed you will have no choice but to see you. And when that day comes, you will not need to scream. The truth will speak louder than they ever did. If this story struck a chord with you, stay with us. Share your own experiences in the comments. Subscribe for more stories where betrayal meets justice. And remember, your worth is never defined by those who try to erase you. It is defined by the courage to stand and to rise.